Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one, Chat Concierge for car shopping. Their tech team built in self-reflection with live API checks to help buyers find a car they love. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.
I'm Yasmin Gagne.
I'm Josh Christensen.
And this is Most Innovative Companies. On today's episode, Fast Company senior writer Mark Sullivan.
AI is not just going to replace the need for graphic designers and creatives, but it's going to revolutionize, completely change the way a lot of these back office functions work.
Harvey Spivak, executive chairman and managing partner of the Equinox Group.
Those hotels will have clubs and often we'll have branded residential as part of that. So we're really bringing the entire Equinox lifestyle to life in the Middle East.
And as always, keeping tabs.
As you know, I follow the Ned Fulmer beat.
But first, here's the download, the news you need to know this week in the world of business and innovation.
Tuesday morning saw another internet-wide disruption, this time because of an outage related to cloud and security provider Cloudflare. Sites like X, DoorDash, IKEA, and ChatGPT showed visitors error messages, leading to worldwide disruptions in e-commerce, social media, transportation, and other sectors. By 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, the bug had been resolved, the company says.
On Tuesday, the U.S. House of Representatives voted 427-1 in favor of releasing all the files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This follows the release of 20,000 documents last week by the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Just days before, President Trump reversed course and called on House Republicans to vote to release the files. The president had previously vehemently opposed the release of the files, publicly feuding with allies like Georgia Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, as well as pressuring others like Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert in private meetings. Trump wrote on Truth Social of the matter, "We have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetrated by the radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party."
Anthropic last week issued a report describing a, quote, highly sophisticated espionage campaign that used artificial intelligence tools to launch automated global cyber attacks. The cyber attacks targeted big tech companies, banks, government agencies, and chemical companies, and have been attributed by Anthropic to the Chinese government. Anthropic believes that this is the first documented instance of an AI-led cyber-espionage scheme executed, quote, without substantial human intervention. This is great. I love this. I love that this is...
We all knew this was coming.
Yeah, we did.
I was kind of surprised it was the first one.
I know. Well, they knew because no one could type that fast without 6 or 7 fingers.
Jeff Bezos is once again stepping into a leadership role, just not at Amazon. The Amazon founder will be co-chief executive of a new AI startup called Project Prometheus. The startup boasts a massive $6.2 billion in early-stage funding, part of which came from Mr. Bezos, or Jeff, as I like to call him. While public details...
The very New York Times of us to go with the...
Yeah, I know, exactly. That's what I was thinking. While public details about the new venture are sparse, the company plans to focus on AI that will assist manufacturing and engineering in fields ranging from automobiles to aerospace to computers.
Well, I feel like I need to stand up for my fellow bald men, but I can't defend calling something Project Prometheus.
I know, it's so embarrassing.
It's so pretentious. Yeah. Oh, God. I hate how business tech leaders name things sometimes. All the time.
Sir, you are a virgin.
Let's send Lawrence Sanchez back into space.
Yeah.
Okay, let's transition into just a huge trough of media business news from this week. The deadline for bids for ownership of Warner Brothers Discovery is this Thursday, or the day that you're probably listening to this when it comes out. 3 companies are vying for control of all or part of the company: Paramount, Comcast, and Netflix. And why is Perplexity not mentioned here? Each will have to make a case to Warner Brothers Discovery's board on how they are positioned to manage regulatory and financial hurdles requisite with such an acquisition. Next up, YouTube TV and Disney announced a deal late last week that ended a 2-week blackout of Disney networks like ESPN, FX, and ABC on YouTube's platforms. Additionally, YouTube can now sell certain Disney networks as well as the Disney Plus/Hulu bundle as parts of different streaming packages. ESPN's direct-to-consumer service is also now bundled with YouTube TV service at no additional cost. And finally, in the media roundup, NPR and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting settled a lawsuit on Monday. The settlement returns almost $36 million in funding to NPR for satellite infrastructure. Over the next 5 years, the CPB will disperse appropriated funds for NPR's satellite system. In exchange, NPR dropped its claims against CPB. NPR also agreed to waive the fees charged to public radio stations to use its satellite services for 2 years.
Next up, a report out this week revealed that financial institutions in China have lent over $200 billion over the past 25 years to infrastructure and tech projects in the U.S. State-owned banks in China have provided lines of credit to companies such as Tesla, Boeing, Disney, and Amazon, while also financing state-level infrastructure projects such as data centers in Northern Virginia, constructions of terminals at JFK Airport in New York, among hundreds of others. These actions by China are thought to be part of the country's larger ambition to outcompete the U.S. in areas like AI, advanced robotics, and clean energy technology. As we learned last week, that last one is definitely working.
Yeah. Yep, definitely is, because we're not even trying, really, at this point. All right, next, there is another big bit of news here around the tech industry. A judge ruled Tuesday that Meta does not have a monopoly in the social media industry. The Federal Trade Commission, which brought the suit, had previously claimed that the tech giant should not have been allowed to buy Instagram and WhatsApp, but failed in proving that Meta is presently breaking antitrust laws.
I feel like TikTok must have changed the calculus here, to be honest.
I think it did. I've been listening to a few different media folks and analysts talk about this, and I actually, maybe it's just because nobody uses Facebook anymore. That's also probably part of it.
No, boomers, billions of boomers.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Billions of boomers using Facebook. I don't know why I went into a Tim Curry impression or trying to do Tim Curry. Billions of boomers.
I didn't clock that one as Tim Curry.
Nor should you have. Nor was it particularly good. But no, I think you're right. TikTok does kind of change the equation on that. Separately, Meta is rolling out a new feature aimed at protecting the original content of creators on Facebook. The feature, called Facebook Content Protection, I don't know why we needed to. It's a real snappy name there.
Not quite Project Prometheus or whatever.
No. Well, it detects when a creator's original reels are being used by someone else without their permission. This is actually kind of a huge problem. People reposting stuff, just clipping things.
Will this solve the problem?
No. Probably not. Nor also, I watched almost the entirety of Draft Day in 3-minute chunks on TikTok. So keep that content coming, y'all.
Too much free time. That's insane.
Yep. No. Yeah. No. I really don't have that free time. I just spend it poorly.
Says the woman watching Love Island Australia currently.
The creator can then either block the visibility of the reel across Instagram and Facebook, add attribution links to the reel, or let the reel remain visible by opting to release their claim on it. While the system does protect content posted on Instagram, it must be cross-posted to Facebook as well to allow for tracking, because Facebook's we need somebody to post on Facebook. We can't just keep having QAnon posts.
And Shrimp Jesus. And finally, on Tuesday, Google announced the release of the latest version of its AI chatbot, Gemini 3. This version of Gemini requires less prompting of the chatbot than before in order to get answers to more complex queries. The latest release comes only 8 months after the release of Gemini 2.5, Google also announced the release of Google Antigravity, a platform for developers to code at, quote, higher task-oriented levels. What that means, who knows?
At a higher task-oriented level, I really do not know what that means. Nor will I endeavor to find out.
And it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I don't think we need to know.
And that's the news you need to know today.
So, Josh, if you had a ton of money, would you sign up for, like, Equinox's $40,000 a year, like, biohacking and tracking situation?
Yes, 1,000% I would sign up for that.
Yeah, me too. Honestly, sounds amazing.
If I was a billionaire and had that sort of money, why not? What else am I going to spend that money on? Even if I don't use the subscriptions.
They basically, like, monitor your blood or, like, do blood work and come up with a bunch of health markers for you and then design, like, a personalized plan where you have a personal trainer 3 times a week who, like, focuses on those things. And then...
Been telling me, wife, we need our blood analyzed more.
Yeah. And then they have, like, a nutrition and sleep coach for you as well. I actually think, like...
Oh, hell yeah.
If I had a lot of money, or not a lot, but if I had, like, more money or, like, the money my...
The amount of dumb shit I would do and spend money on if I had that much money.
Don't know if I would spend... I would spend on property. Like, I would buy a brownstone. You know?
Oh, I would definitely, like, buy property, but it would just be like stupid subscriptions or random things like that.
Subscribe to every Substack.
Like, I would definitely be like, can I book one of the below deck yachts and be on camera and be one of those crazy people?
Oh my God.
I would 100% do that. I would do this Equinox membership. I would definitely.
Well, if I made, like, the salary that our peers are making in tech or banking, I would definitely get a personal trainer, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that shit is, like, so, like, having somebody to hold you accountable and teach you how to have proper form, because the amount of times I've, like, injured myself in the gym.
Oh, yeah. I'm 35. I have back spasms regularly.
Yeah. But that's not going to happen for us because we work in media.
Nope, never going to happen.
Anyway, we're talking about this because we have the guy who runs Equinox Holdings on the show later on. And it's actually one of my favorite interviews we've done.
Yeah.
But first, in a surprising move, SoftBank recently sold all of its Nvidia stock. Peter Thiel followed suit. But in its third quarter earnings, which came out this week, the company reported a revenue of $57 billion, beating estimates of $55 billion and marking a 62% year-over-year increase. We wanted to understand why Masa-san and Thiel decided to dump their stocks when the company is doing so well. So we called up Fast Company senior writer Mark Sullivan to unpack these moves. Hey, Mark, welcome back to the show.
Okay, good to be on again.
So convincing. So SoftBank just sold all 32 million of its Nvidia shares. And Nvidia, as we've talked about on this podcast, very valuable company, seems to have been growing a lot this year. What is behind this move? How should we interpret it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are nervous right now because Nvidia has become a big stock for people, just retail investors who want to get in on AI, which is possibly a good instinct. But for that reason, everybody's really watching closely what Nvidia's stock price is doing. It's, way up this year. I think it's a $5 trillion company. Its market cap is huge. So people are kind of looking for signs that the party is ending because, like, a lot of people feel like these stocks are overvalued. So when somebody like SoftBank sells their stake, those concerns rise and people can panic and head for the exits, which would be bad for a lot of people. Ultimately, Nvidia stock didn't dip that much. I think it was a couple of percentage points, and it's still not doing great this week. But, it wasn't like a major sell-off or anything like that.
And what has SoftBank said about why it's selling these shares?
It was a tiny bit cryptic. The CEO, Sun, didn't say anything about it, but their CTO said something about redeploying assets, which is a likely scenario. I think they were trying to free up cash to place a bet on OpenAI. So they needed that $5.8 billion amount to put behind an increased investment in AI. So that's what they needed the money for.
And it seems like, they've basically said they don't want to bet on the company making chips, but on the actual AI technology, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that was my read. I tended to look at this as not a negative sign about the future of AI, but rather a positive one. I felt that by selling all this Nvidia stock, they're opting for a company that they can be more directly involved in rather than just sort of a passive retail investor, which is what they had in Nvidia. Plus, OpenAI is making the genuine article. They're the actual company making the models and trying to sell them to big business.
Well, and this investment builds on Stargate, right? Tell us a little bit about that and sort of SoftBank's pre-existing relationship with OpenAI.
Yeah.
This will be sort of a refresher for podcast listeners. I feel like Stargate, we talked a lot about it in the spring, and then not so much since then.
Yeah, it's a $19 billion investment from SoftBank. At least that's what the commitment is. Whether that money is actually materialized and put into somebody else's bank account, I don't know. I think that's a item for speculation. But yeah, that's just part of the investment that they've approved. And that particular one is kind of going to go into a pool of money with OpenAI's investment and Oracle. And the plan there is just to build out a bunch of data centers to support all this additional capacity that's going to be needed for AI in the future.
And there's been some reporting that so far they haven't done that much. Right?
Yeah, I've seen that. I'm not sure if that's entirely true. I mean, I think there is some building going on in Texas for new data centers underneath the Stargate heading. Yeah, there's just a lot of anxiety about when these data centers are going to be needed. They don't need the additional capacity now because we're talking about an untested technology that businesses are trying to implement and they're piloting, but it's the AI revolution, at least where business is concerned, is just getting started. It's not enough to seem to support all this investing that's going on.
Now, to go back to what we started with, which is, Masayoshi Son's decision to dump his Nvidia stock, put it into OpenAI. He has a reputation for risky bets. Some of them ARM have paid off. Others WeWork really didn't. Could this be another sort of example of like a risky gambling strategy he's taking?
I think it could. I don't know exactly what the expectation is or what the timeline is. I have talked to the people at Thrive Capital, which are core investors in OpenAI, and a lot of the conversations end up being about how long it's going to take. Like the people at Thrive say, yeah, we've got decades to see our money create multiples. And I don't know, maybe SoftBank has that kind of time, or maybe that's what the expectation is. In the past, they've had situations where the timeline was much shorter and they got antsy and nervous and bailed out of an investment. In fact, the first time they invested in Nvidia, that's the same thing that happened back in 2017.
They got out at the perfect time with Nvidia.
Yeah, tell me about what happened in 2017.
Well, that's the narrative that I've heard from several analysts and read from analysts is that, yeah, it was just, what the expectations were. They amassed quite a bit of stock in the billions, if I remember right, back then, but they got out early, and they got out, I believe it was in 2017 that they got out the first time, and that's the same year that the Transformer paper was published at Google that set off this firestorm or this boom of generative AI. So yeah,
I think it's important to note, though, they got out in 2017, but they got back on and ultimately made money, right?
Yeah, they did. I mean, it's FOMO is a powerful force even at that level. But yeah, I think what I was trying to say in my article is that if you're excited about AI, Nvidia isn't the only way to do it. If you're really excited about it, why not invest in the company that's making the AI instead of just the company that's a supplier, in essence? They do make a lot of software, but the way they're making their money is by selling chips to people who are building AI models, and in some cases, large enterprises that are deploying big AI models.
The other Nvidia stock dump that people have been talking about recently is that Peter Thiel and at least one other billionaire are also selling off their Nvidia shares. What should we make of that?
I don't know much about what the rationale is. I mean, it's a rational. It seems like a rational move when you look at the multiples upon actual earnings. It does feel like that these companies, these stock prices, including Nvidia, are not completely supported by sales. And I suspect that that's probably what it was. I don't have any special knowledge about why they did that, but it might have been, there are other reasons. SoftBank wanted to own a different type of investment, so they freed up money to, invest directly in a company. But it's not a good sign. I think the Nvidia stock is down a couple of percentage points today. I looked about an hour ago, and so I guess it's possible that has changed. I expect it will probably recover, but somebody like Peter Thiel is somebody you want to pay attention to. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what we might need to see from Nvidia's upcoming earnings that would, right the ship or dissuade people from selling off their stock?
Well, there was a narrative last time they reported that the reason they didn't project as much growth as people thought they were is because of their troubles in China, their political troubles with the government halting them from selling their most powerful chips there. I think what people are going to be looking for is chip sales in the U.S. and margins on those chip sales and some pretty, I think you're probably going to see some pretty aggressive projecting for the next quarter about how quickly those sales are going. If that number is disappointing, you could see more degradation of that Nvidia share price after earnings.
I should note that NVIDIA's earnings call will be Wednesday the 19th, so before this episode comes out and after we record this segment. So go to fastcompany.com and read Mark's reporting when that earnings call comes through. I'm sure there'll be another article out.
Yeah.
Now, it seems like most people think, and you were just talking about the sort of stock performance of NVIDIA today, that NVIDIA will continue to grow and its technology is proven. At the same time, OpenAI's technology kind of unproven. They made a lot of promises. We can see ChatGPT working, we can see Sora, but a lot of the potential hasn't really been borne out yet.
Not to mention the revenue that they could generate is unproven. I think we reported last week a $1 trillion in spending commitments that that OpenAI has already committed to. So when they're going to 10x those investments, who knows?
Yeah, I think it's actually 1.4 trillion is the commit at this point.
Now, a rounding error.
So why is it that, given that fact, SoftBank and Amazon are still, committed to investing in OpenAI that much? And why are they prioritizing it over investing in sort of more established businesses with track record like NVIDIA's?
Good question, a vexing question. I think mainly what people are wrestling with is the idea, this story that's coming from companies like Microsoft and OpenAI and Anthropic, that AI is not just going to replace the need for graphic designers and creatives, but it's going to revolutionize, completely change the way a lot of these back office functions work within Fortune 500 companies, like business intelligence systems, decision support systems, accounting systems. And I think that we're talking about a technology that was originally built to be a sort of a glorified autocomplete function. It's all about words. There's also the issue of it being a probabilistic technology that works in probabilities and not deterministic facts as more traditional computers do. So those are basic reasons to worry about whether this technology is going to be reliable enough to be put in central functions in these businesses. And the bet is that they will. How long that is going to take is kind of anybody's guess. Personally, I think it will eventually play a huge role in the way businesses are run. The question is how quickly that can happen. I mean, the technology itself might be perfect, but how well you can apply it in a business with all these kind of existing habits and workflows is, that doesn't happen in 2 years. That happens in a decade.
I will say the pivot to AI erotica from a couple weeks ago did not bode well for the timeline of artificial general intelligence. But that's just me reading between the lines.
Yeah, that was my impression too. It's like, looking at this big gambit that this company is undertaking and this narrative they're trying to get us to swallow about really transforming everything. And what they did there, with Sora, it just seems like a level of kind of unseriousness that didn't play very well, given everything that they're trying to convince us of and bet our money on.
I think what people want and expect is for AI to end up being like Jarvis. Like you walk into your house and you say, ChatGPT, do X, Y, and Z for me, and it goes and does that. And that seems like if you've ever tried to use Siri or Alexa or those other, and I know it's a different technology and a different model, although Amazon's trying to roll out an AI model into Alexa and all of those good things, it doesn't seem like we're particularly close on that front, even with just basically like, hey, Alexa, tell me the weather. And I know everyone's Alexas just went off in their houses.
The consumer side of this is really interesting, more interesting probably than the business case, the back office case I was just talking about.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty bullish on these problems. I don't know why it's taking so long, but Google is apparently going to do a deal with Apple where you get a Google Gemini brain inside of Siri, in effect. Amazon has already done a lot of work to put generative AI behind the you-know-who devices in your house. I think that problem is going to be solved. I think the kind of thing you're talking about, which is kind of this ambient AI where you walk into your house and just say something in plain language and your little helper does it. I think that's going to happen in the next 3, 4, 5 years. I think it's going to get a lot better in that way. What that does in terms of consumer trust, they've also got to be dealing with that. It's got to work really well the first time out. So I'm looking forward to that too.
To put a finer point on it, we've been talking about OpenAI all this time, and Amazon's investing in OpenAI. Masa-san is invested in OpenAI. Why not Anthropic? Like, why not another LLM?
I don't know why there isn't a more diverse investment in some of these other companies. OpenAI has always been seen as the prime mover in this space, the biggest, and by a lot of measurements, they have the most advanced models. So I don't know why that it isn't more diverse than that. It could have something to do with the consumer focus of OpenAI is trying to do everything. They're trying to do work with businesses and the consumer market. Consumer side is exemplified by this work it's doing with Johnny Ive to create a consumer AI piece of hardware or device. So it's possible that he was attracted to that wider aperture of the technology. And whereas Anthropic is almost completely focused on putting AI into the sort of the back office space and business space I was talking about earlier.
You've given various answers throughout this interview that make me think you're bullish on AI and some that make me think you're not. So I have to ask, do you think we're in a bubble?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I was at a press conference with the leadership of OpenAI the other day, and I heard them all say that they thought that we're in a bubble. They, what their motivations are, especially somebody like Sam Altman, is a bit hard to track. But I worry that there's just too small of a pool of companies that are putting all the investment money behind this. And there's been a lot of reporting on how these are kind of circular investments, like Nvidia invests in OpenAI and they say, well, we'll give you these investment payments, but they're going to be tied to how many chips you buy from us. So it's like this self-supporting loop. And that's where this big narrative is coming from. This is all going to work out. We're going to build a shit ton of data centers and they're all going to be humming away and business is going to be completely revolutionized. So I wish that there were a more diverse set of voices who were putting their money where their opinions are, saying that, yeah, this is all going to work out. I mean, I'm impressed enough with the technology and just based on the people within the industry that I talked to about it, I think it's going to be a big change agent. I'm just skeptical of the idea that it's going to happen quickly.
And for everyday investors, like, what should they expect? For the people worried about all the Nvidia stock they bought, what would you, I mean, not that we give advice on this podcast, but I guess how do you think the market will be going forward?
I guess one prediction I will make is I think that on Wednesday you're going to see Nvidia come out and make an impressive show for investors. And I believe their stock will rise after that report. This is especially after their last earnings report, which some were disappointed by. I don't have any investment advice, but in terms of worldview, I would say you either need to be the kind of investor that keeps a very close eye on how quickly people are buying Nvidia chips and what that stock is doing and be prepared to trade, within days, at the first sign that this bubble is deflating. Or you need to be the kind of investor who's willing to keep their money in the stock for 5 years or 10 years. Because I do believe that over time, the demand for the product this company makes, these powerful GPUs, is going to continue. And, the ocean is going to rise in general. You may not be able to make a profit in the short term. I don't know. But, so, yeah, that's what I would advise.
You're very team both, Mark.
Yeah.
But I get it.
It's either a sell now or a hold long. I want to ask one more question. This is not apropos of anything that we're talking about this episode. I've just been following, and I think Hard Fork had a good episode on this past week, data centers in space. What's your take on data centers in space?
Oh, super interesting. The main cost of terrestrial data centers, both in environmental costs and in costs to run these things, is cooling. And when you shoot one of these things up into space, that cost goes away. And so you have a data center that runs a lot cooler and potentially even faster, more productively. Then the problem becomes, how good is the connection to the Earth from this thing? I don't know the technology there, but it has to be a connection with super low latency. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally a great idea if the connection works.
If we can put Katy Perry in space, we can put a data center.
Yeah, we can put something smarter in space. Sure.
All right, well, Mark, thanks for that. We are going to take a quick break, followed by my interview with Equinox CEO Harvey Spivak.
Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one. It's called Chat Concierge, and it's simplifying car shopping. Using self-reflection and layered reasoning with live API checks, it doesn't just help buyers find a car they love, it helps schedule a test drive, get pre-approved for financing, and estimate trade-in value. Advanced, intuitive, and deployed. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.
It took the Equinox Group, the parent company of luxury gym chain Equinox, Equinox Hotels, and SoulCycle, around 5 years to recover from COVID. Now past that phase, Equinox has announced big plans for expansion. Executive Chairman and Managing Partner of Equinox Group, Harvey Spivak, came on the show to talk about opening 40 new clubs in new markets, expanding into the Middle East, and ditching Kiehl's for Grown Alchemist. Hey, Harvey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Yas.
Before we talk about the business, what is your local Equinox club? Which one do you visit the most?
That's like asking which is your favorite child.
Yeah, I am asking which is your favorite child.
I have twins, and I often joke about when I'm with one or the other. I tell them that you're my favorite, and then I tell the other one she's my favorite.
That's going to give them, you're going to be paying a lot of psychiatry bills down the line, but
Probably. So far it's worked out okay, but it's so probably at some point in time. I truly do not. I like so many of them for different reasons. I would say because my offices are at Hudson Yards, I do use the Equinox at Hudson Yards most frequently. But when I travel, which is frequent, I'm using clubs in all our different markets as frequently as I can.
In the next couple of years, Equinox plans to open 40 new clubs, which is massive. What is driving this growth? Tell me about that strategy.
Yeah, so look, if you go back, we've always been a high growth company leading up to COVID. And COVID for a company like ours was pretty rough. You think about it, going back to March of 2020. And I understand you were a member back then, in March of 2020, and government shuts us down in all of our markets. And in some cases, we were closed for 6 months. In LA, we were probably roughly closed for almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in March of 20, you go from high growth to zero revenue. You've got lots of locations. And so landlords want to get paid. We want to take care of employees who are the heart and soul of our brand and our business, which we did, and we did very, very well. We treated them, probably better than anybody, not just like in our category, but anywhere in hospitality, retail. We paid them for an extended period of time because we thought that was important. It was the right thing to do. And then we've been, for a long time in recovery mode.
Mm-hmm.
But the goal was, the way we thought about our strategy was to rebound the business and then get back to growth and transformation.
How long would you say recovery mode took? Like, do you think it took basically the 5 years leading up till now, or?
Pretty much. I would say we were close to fully recovered, kind of the end of 24, but 25 will be a record year from a profitability perspective. And so we're back now to high growth from a financial perspective, which is great, which has emboldened us now to say, okay, it's time to grow and ultimately to transform. And so from a growth perspective, there's tremendous demand for the Equinox brand and the Equinox offering in existing markets, but also in lots of new markets. So over the last 12 months, we've built a pretty robust pipeline. Like you've mentioned, that 40 locations is probably closer to 50 at this point.
Wow.
Over the next 4 or 5 years. We've opened a bunch of locations, including in new markets this year. So in December, we opened our first in Philadelphia, Rittenhouse Square, which is performing extremely well, better than we expected. We opened our first in Seattle in June, also exceeding our expectations. In the fall, we're opening our first in San Diego. So by the end of the year, San Diego, West Loop of Chicago, another one in New York, another one in Los Angeles and Santa Monica, which is pretty cool. We're excited about all of these. So we'll open 5 locations between now and I would say by January. And then we've got, this big pipeline behind it. So we're real excited about growing now, and we got a lot of good stuff coming, both from a new location perspective, renovating existing locations, and how our offering is going to evolve.
How are you picking what new markets to enter? I know some of them already have soul cycles, for instance, so I guess you have some kind of data from that.
So we're pretty sophisticated. Our real estate team is very knowledgeable about all the markets where we've always wanted to go. And when I say the markets, it includes cities as well as pretty much by zip code, if not by block, generally where we want to be. And we evaluate that and look at that frequently, but that informs where we want to go next. And so we've been pretty thoughtful of how we've grown over time, and that's a big part of why our unit economics are so strong and why investors in the financial community loves what we do. But the world has changed in terms of where there's demand. So while there continues to be great demand in some of our existing markets, Manhattan, Southern California, San Francisco is still a little bit slower in recovery, but getting there. When I say San Francisco, I'd say Northern California, kind of not just San Francisco proper, but we're doing some new stuff there. Well, then there's new markets that where we didn't exist before, like I mentioned, Philadelphia or Seattle, but then there's also, the South. So we just recently announced our first location in Nashville. That'll open next year, which we're real excited about that market. South Florida, where we think that'll become our 3rd biggest market outside of New York and Los Angeles. And a lot of that's because of the migration of people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of those from New York, but from other markets who now are living in South Florida, and there's great demand. So we're opening our first location in West Palm Beach next month. And what we do in our business is we have something called pre-sale. So we sell memberships in advance of opening. And the response has been absolutely outstanding. And I keep using these words, exceeding our expectation, outstanding, because it's all factually true. So when West Palm Beach, we started selling memberships in June, the worst time of the year you could be selling memberships, but we did that because we were going to open in November. And we're going to open with a member count. The response has been so strong. We're going to open a member count that is higher than what we thought we would achieve in 4 years.
Wow.
And so it just demonstrates that there's other markets beyond where we operate today, where there's great demand for the uniqueness of the Equinox experience and offering. And we're super excited about that.
Do you think it's because, like, you know, say Palm Beach, you talk about migration. Do you think it's because demographics have changed? Do you think people are just more aware of wellness or want that kind of luxury experience? What do you think are the factors here for something like Nashville to become a big market?
Great question. I think it's a combination of things. I think these markets are evolving rapidly, and there's greater desire for, I don't love the word wellness, but we could talk about that if you want, but greater desire for health and wellness broadly. It's become a bigger priority during and coming out of COVID than ever before. And that's not just a Nashville phenomenon or South Florida, that's a global phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think about the Equinox offering and the uniqueness and the authority the brand has around high performance living, which I'm happy to talk about. And it's just kind of a perfect storm. So I've been leading this company for 25 plus years. And if I go back to the early days, it was trying to convince people that we don't call Equinox gyms, we call them clubs, but it was trying to convince people that the gym world was not a fad world.
Mm-hmm.
People thought, particularly in the financial community, oh, this is not going to last. And now look at where we've gone. So now we've got momentum. There's great tailwinds around the consumer. The consumer desperately wants, now I will use the words, all things health and wellness, starting at young ages, all in the spirit of trying to live a health that is full of vitality and energy, which is often defined as you've heard the buzzwords, you know, health span, not just lifespan.
Yeah. So I want to get into that in a second because I know you guys have some new offerings. But first, I actually want to talk a little bit about the Equinox Hotel. And I say this because I remember going on a tour of it when it opened, and there was some talk of, like, you know, this may be a big part of the business. We may open more hotels. That doesn't seem to be the case now. Tell me about that part of the business and, you know, I guess why you've sort of gone back to focusing on clubs.
To the contrary of what you're saying, we're actually focused on both. So we have a pipeline on the hotel side of around 10 to 12 new hotels. The difference is the gestation period for a hotel is much longer, particularly when you're building a new hotel as compared to a club. So it takes years. So our next hotel is opening in the Red Sea in Saudi Arabia in spring of 2026.
Why the Red Sea?
Because there was great demand for our brand, our hotel, our club, our entire offering. So we also have branded residential there, which is another part of our offering now. But there was a lot of interest in bringing us to a resort location. So it's a beautiful setting with some of the most magnificent water you've seen in the world. It's an undeveloped piece of real estate in Saudi Arabia. So in partnership with the government there and PIF, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, they have built out a big area, a marina. Us and some other hotels are going to be operating there. Ours is Foster designed, David Rockwell interiors, and we're real excited about that. But that is the next hotel. We've already announced another hotel in Saudi Arabia. There's one unannounced that's coming. We haven't announced yet, but there's potentially one, if not two more in the region. And then we've also announced one in Nashville. There's one we're working on in the Caribbean. So we're super excited about the hotel. The hotel really shows a lot of things about the Equinox brand. One, the uniqueness of the offering. Two, our ability to anticipate the needs and wants of our community and our consumer ahead of when they want it. And then our ability to deliver a unique experience like nobody else can. So the hotel, super proud of what we accomplished. Our timing could not have been worse. We opened in summer of 19, closed it 6 months later, absolutely terrible timing, and then reopened 6 months and we never looked back. And so fast forward to where we are today in the hotel, it's recognized as one of the best 50 hotels in the world. That's an independent recognition, not coming from us. There was only 2 in the US that made that list, one of us, so that feels pretty cool as the new kid on the block. And it's remarkable who stays at our hotel now. It's literally a who's who of Fortune 100 companies to people out of Hollywood, out of the music industry, some of these names, are put out there on their own. So whether it be Mark Wahlberg or Jessica Alba or Kevin Hart, we don't ask them to. They're out there because they love being here. They're regular customers for us. But there's a lot of other people that stay with us that I won't mention because obviously we're looking to protect their privacy. But really excited about what we've done with the hotel and the uniqueness of the experience there and the future for the hotel. So both will be big parts of our business.
I got to ask about development in the Middle East. Do you have gyms there? Is it primarily a hotel market? I know Equinox has a location in London, but I guess I'm curious about why that region was so attractive demographically.
It's really fascinating what's going on there over the last 4 or 5 years. And it varies by obviously country and city. But there's so much interest in health and wellness, hospitality, living a healthy lifestyle, and the Equinox brand. So what's really fascinating to me, and I've spent a lot of time in the Mideast, particularly in certain countries, is when I go over there, I constantly introduce people, oh, I was a member when I lived in Boston. Oh, I was a member when I lived in Los Angeles. Oh, I was a member when I lived in New York. So the brand awareness is very high because a lot of the 30 and 40-year-olds in the Middle East have been educated here in the US. And they're educated in a lot of cities that, where we have big portfolios of clubs. So there's always been... So
is it often transplants or it's actually like people who are native to the region?
Both. It's a combination of both. There's definitely a lot of expats. I mean, there's a lot of, particularly on the financial side, there's a lot of growth that's happened over, the Middle East. And, you see it every day, you hear it every day. And so we're partners with some of the big players, obviously, in the hotels that we're doing. Those hotels will have clubs and often we'll have branded residential as part of that. So we're really bringing the entire Equinox lifestyle to life in the Middle East. And so we think that's a big frontier for us and we're real excited. I'm not going to comment on whether, besides what the hotel clubs are coming, but you could read between the lines whether that might be coming in the future.
You're going to hate this question. I don't mean to be combative here, but
It's okay.
I remember there was the whole debacle with Stephen Ross where he held this fundraiser for Trump and there was tons of people, at least on social media, saying they were going to leave the club. And I would say I grew up in Saudi Arabia for a while and not the greatest track record on human rights. Do you worry about that kind of soiling your brand, or how do you think about that?
Fair question. And here's what I would say is when Stephen did the fundraiser back in summer of 2019, I mean, we definitely, and this reflects on how people feel about our brand.
Yeah.
We definitely got given a very hard time by our members, prospective members, what we call our alumni members. And it was a time when the cancel culture was a very big thing. And we definitely took our hits during that. But what I would also say is that is because people are so emotionally attached to the Equinox brand.
That's why I had the follow-up question. Yeah.
We've got a list of all of corporate America that at that time was donating to Donald Trump or the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
It's a who's who of American household names.
Oh, yeah, it's everyone.
We don't donate to any party. We've always been, in effect, Switzerland and believe we're an inclusive community. And I don't mean that just by race and gender, what have you. Everybody can have their political views. Everybody can have their religious views. That's the magic of Equinox, right? That it's such a diverse and inclusive community, both from our employee side and from our member side. But what struck me was because people love us, they expect more from us. And so this struck a chord.
Yeah.
CVS, where you buy your toothpaste, nobody cared. CVS was one of the biggest donors to Donald Trump at the time, but nobody cared. Nobody was canceling them or what have you. So higher bar, high expectation, but that comes with the territory. We've always been highly sensitive to, we're not political. We don't take religious points of view. And that's always how I've led the business and I've always operated the business. Stephen Ross, who is obviously a significant investor and a partner, made a personal decision to do something with, and which, I'm not going to defend, with, supporting Donald Trump. And it was really kind of from a business perspective more than anything, but that was, his decision.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate that it affected Equinox and SoulCycle at the time. And so as we move forward, we always continue to think the same way. We're not going to weigh in on politics. We're not going to weigh in on religion, but people are allowed to have their personal points of view. I personally think it's gone a little too far. It's okay to have different points of view. right? That's how America was built. It's okay, just do it respectfully. And so it was an unfun time, but we're always sensitive who we partner with, always have been, always will be, who we partner with, big and small. And so when you talk about the Middle East, everybody you know is partnering with a lot of these countries, including Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And Saudi Arabia is transforming and substantial reform. And so when you look at that, I mean, we're not alone in deciding that it's okay to do business there. And we're super excited to be partnering and building hotels and clubs in Saudi Arabia and throughout the region. But we're always super sensitive to who we'll work with. It's always top of mind for us.
You mentioned Optimize. You mentioned GLP-1 program. There's Equinox Living. There's another chain in New York, Lifetime Fitness, that I think has grown a lot that is, I think, operating in quite a similar space. And for a long time, I feel like Equinox, to me, was like the only one doing it. How do you think about that kind of newer competition? I know they were in other parts of the country before, sort of more middle of the country markets.
Look, I think at the end of the day, there's some similarities in the programming, but the offerings are very different. They are much more of a rural to suburban play, and we're much more of an urban play. We're much more, luxury, high touch, service oriented, I would say more boutique oriented versus their approach. But there is some overlap programmatically. I think that at the end of the day, though, what I would say is if you want the Equinox experience, you're not going to get it at Lifetime. You're getting it at Equinox. And they could say whatever they want to say. And I'm not sure what they say because I don't really pay attention, because ultimately we're building a global luxury lifestyle brand, playing with people that they and others really can't play with. So we more often than not lead a lot of this conversation. If they want to follow or lead on some aspects, that's up to them. That's flattering. I have a lot of respect for what they've been able to accomplish. But what we're doing is very unique, and our community loves what we do. So I don't really view it as competition. I just view it as, someone else operating in the category. And I think there's plenty of room for both of us and others as well.
I want to touch quickly on two other Equinox Holdings properties. Equinox obviously growing tremendously, like massive plans. Blink filed for bankruptcy, got acquired, and I would just love to hear a little bit about that and how it fit into your portfolio. And then tell me a little bit about plans for SoulCycle.
Blink, was just like our entire portfolio, was hit hard during COVID, unfortunately, and still think it was a neat offering that had been doing well pre-COVID and had a great future. Unfortunately, due to the effects of COVID, the lenders there decided that they would prefer to get out and sell off the business. And it was their decision to sell it to a third party. In retrospect, a year plus later, they would acknowledge probably that it was a mistake because it was worth a lot more than what they did. But it was really something outside of our decision, and it's frustrating and unfortunate. But that's just the reality of when you have lenders and when you do things during COVID. Some people understand and work with you, and most of our lenders and investors have been extremely supportive of us, as have been our landlords, and greatly appreciative of that. But in some cases, like in the Blink case, that wasn't the case. For SoulCycle also hit hard. Mm-hmm. SoulCycle has recovered well. We definitely have closed some Soul locations, but big believers in the power of the Soul brand and the cult following. We still have the loyalists there, and Equinox is really phenomenal and something that's super proud of. It's rare you build one great brand with that emotional attachment. People love to do that and can't do it, but when you have two, it's pretty remarkable. And so really love what Soul has done historically, and big believers in what Soul will do in the future. But we got some work to do there.
The other thing I'm curious about is why you ditched Kiehl's for Grown Alchemist in the Equinox bathrooms, which I remember getting a press release about this and being like, okay, whatever. And then I felt like the internet went crazy.
Well,
when it was announced.
So I'm going to be too transparent. I'm going to get yelled at by my team afterwards, and I'm going to respond to this, okay? But I'm going to get a lot of trouble. So Kiehl's was a very successful relationship for a very long time. And Kiehl's also went through many leadership changes over that period of time. So just to get into our thinking a little bit, in 2008, there was something called the Great Recession. And
I remember.
Right? and if you think about a business like ours, similar to COVID, you would say not going to survive. And we believe, because of who we cater to, that the emotional attachment that I referred to a number of times today, but the emotional attachment, emotional connectivity, and the importance of what we do was actually more important during that period of time of stress. And it went from not a want, but a need. But at the same time, the financial community said, panic, what's going to happen? Are you going to be able to, you're going to lose a lot of members, all this kind of stuff. And what happened was the complete opposite. We had a record year in 2008 financially, and we had a flat year in 2009 to 2008, which was heroic performance.
Yeah, pretty remarkable.
On any chart, particularly in the consumer landscape, not just in gyms, just crazy. So two things came out of that was we said, instead of cutting like everybody else does, cut your maintenance staff, cut your front desk staff, cut headcount, we went the other way. We definitely tightened our belt, but we went the other way. We said, what else can we do for our members? And at the time, we had generic product in our locker rooms. And so we said, let's take a cue, which is how we've built our business, different than others. You mentioned one name, but we've taken our cues from hospitality or retail or fashion or luxury community over the years, not from the category.
Yeah.
And, we've always been a leader, not a follower like others do. But when we've done that, we said, okay, we think this is a great way to give back. And we did two things. This is in 2009. At the time, Kiehl's was a very hot brand. We put Kiehl's in our locker rooms, and we introduced eucalyptus towels.
I was going to ask, was that the same time you introduced the towels?
Same time. And it's interesting. It had nothing to do with the class or the personal training session or the service level, right? It was more about the lifestyle and the experience and the attention to detail and the touch points, which is so core to who we are and what we've done so well over the years. And so we introduced it, and our members who were smart said, are you guys crazy? Like, do you understand there's a recession going on? And this clearly is costing you more money. And we said, no, we love you.
Yeah.
And our business just took off.
Wow.
And so it was a great relationship for a long time, for, let's call it 15 years. But through all the changes of their leadership, which seemed to be very frequent, the product just was, in our mind, a little stale, and they weren't innovating around the product. Mm-hmm. And there were some things in the product which, in the world of getting clean, were not good ingredients.
Right, interesting.
And they were reluctant to change it. And so we said, this is not the right product for our members. And so despite what they've said in the market, we decided to end the relationship. Interestingly, I'm going to point out, and this is where I'm really getting in trouble, is that other brand that you mentioned that started with an L from Minnesota, they've picked up our sloppy seconds.
I know.
Okay?
I know.
That's fact. So no matter what you hear out there, that is fact. Okay? So nobody likes sloppy seconds. That's certainly not us.
Yeah.
Okay? So we ended the relationship. We decided to go another direction. There's no doubt that other direction caused an uproar. Clean is tricky. And Grown Alchemist is clean, but it comes with issues. It doesn't suds as much. It doesn't do this, that. So anyway, make a long story short in this regard, I would just say stay tuned for more announcements in the not too distant future. And I have someone in the background of my office having a heart attack right now. But
were your customers asking for clean? Like, did that become sort of a really important part of the brand?
I think there was some of that, but it was also, we were looking to say, okay, what's the future here versus what's yesterday?
Yeah.
And we felt that, Kiehl's was yesterday and we wanted something more progressive. And so we went in a direction. There's no doubt a lot of our members loved the direction we went. And other members were like, as you saw on Reddit, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. You're cheapening out. It's actually more expensive, just so we're clear. It was not us cheapening out.
Yeah.
Right? It's a more expensive product. So, we listen. And so we have some things coming in the not too distant future.
That makes a lot of sense. So I want to move on and talk a little bit about the Optimize program and a little bit about the health and, sorry to use this word, sort of wellness offerings and how they're changing. First off, why'd you hate the word wellness? Second, tell me a little bit about that as a business decision.
So, yeah, that's like a wild transition. We're going from talking about Saudi Arabia, Middle East, and Donald Trump to now health and wellness and
I'm conscious
Optimize.
Of time, and we got to cover so much.
So I'll tell you why I don't like the word wellness. It's like the word corporate synergy. It's the word luxury. What is it? What is wellness? So is it your insurance company? Because they talk wellness.
Yeah.
Is it your doctor? Because he or she talks wellness. Is it your fitness or your gym? Because they talk well. Everybody's using the word. The good news is if you use the word and you look at it as a kind of category, it's soon going to be a $10 trillion global category. So the opportunity is tremendous, and it's still very much mom and pop. And so there's no brand that's better positioned than Equinox with our authority, with our brand equity, to take advantage of what we refer to as high performance living. And at the core of high performance living, and if you listen to the true respected longevity gurus, they align with this philosophy. And so in many ways, I think we've written the narrative here. We talk about it from a science perspective. How do you live a high performance lifestyle? We talk about it MNRC, movement, which is working out, being active, and nutrition. I prefer the word nourishment because nutrition is medicinal. Nourishment is eating well and eating in a way that gives you, energy and fuel for the body. R is recovery. Sleep's at the core of that, but there's other aspects to recovery at this point. And a lot of the biohacking comes into that, right? And then C is community. And so we've embraced that for years, and nobody's, particularly the narrative on all that, but nobody's written that narrative more so in the community than we have. And so when you think about all of that, we think there's nobody better positioned to take advantage of the opportunity around wellness. And so to advance that and take it where we think it's going to go is we introduced Optimize last year. And so I've been doing this for a long time this way, personally, which is data to inform your needs. That data comes in different ways, but at the core of what Optimize is through a partnership with Function Health and Mark Hyman, who you've probably heard of, one of the foremost experts in longevity from a nutrition perspective. That's his background. But when we thought about Optimize, we said, okay, who can we partner with to establish Yaz's biomarkers through blood? And based on those biomarkers, with all the privacy protection in mind, how do we use that information to inform a comprehensive, holistic program to focus on what we do well is help you with your vitality and energy? Mm-hmm. We're not doctors, even though the world is blurring and maybe that changes in the future.
Yeah.
Right? So we take those biomarkers, and then you are assigned, as part of the Optimize program, you're assigned a concierge who then quarterbacks your program with a team of specialists. Your personal trainer that we refer to as coach, your nutrition coach, your sleep coach. And then we rinse and repeat. We retest to see how the progress. It's very personalized. We announced it last, I think it was May. And it wasn't like we were trying to make some big press announcement. We were just trying to acknowledge that we were doing this and we were starting. Well, the thing blew up and it went viral. I mean, it showed up everywhere. And we clearly, in this regard, struck a chord in two ways. One, it was the power of the Equinox brand. People want us to innovate, want us to be the authority, want us to bring more, want to know how we're thinking. That was very clear. But also the other buzzword, longevity. People at all ages, particularly younger ages, which is really remarkable, are thinking about how do they live actively healthier longer. And so literally overnight, not only do we get a crazy amount of media coverage, but at the same time, we wound up with a 1,000-person wait list, charging $40,000 a year.
Wow. And
you had people like Andrew Ross-Sorkin going on Morning Joe, not us, I mean, I'm friends with Andrew, but defending the program, saying it's actually worth it. Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty exciting when you think about things like that, whether it be that or what we've done with GLP-1 or now what we're doing with Equinox Arc for women, is, once again, the world wants, our community wants more from us, but they want innovative thinking and meeting them where their needs are. And we've always done a great job of anticipating our community's needs ahead of when they knew what they wanted.
I know you guys are doing stuff with GLP-1s, but I'm curious how it's changed the business. Have you seen different kinds of members? Do you see people doing different kinds of workouts? What does that look like?
I don't think it's had a dramatic effect on the business, but I definitely think the needs and wants of certain members have changed. So early on when GLP-1 exploded, there was lots of press out there. Does this mean gyms are dead or?
Totally. Are snacks over? Yeah.
Snacks over?
Yeah.
All that stuff. And, we believed at the time, and obviously time has validated this, that no, it goes actually the opposite way, because it's a way to supercharge if you don't have a medical issue, just if you want to lose some weight or what have you to different degrees, it supercharges. So it basically kickstarts you. But what the world has learned through lots of science and research and, the different experts is if you use that as a kickstart, but then complement it and move towards living a different lifestyle, meaning all the stuff's around MRC. Be active, strength train, eat well. If you do that, those are the people that are getting the greatest results from GLP-1. So we saw it instead of as a negative, we saw it as an opportunity to create a special GLP-1 training program through what we call the Equinox Fitness Training Institute, which is our own proprietary training institute, working with our team of doctors. So we have something called a health advisory board, which is some of the foremost experts in science, academia, what have you, to help guide us and things like that. We created a training protocol specific for people who are on GLP-1. Mm-hmm. And then we certified a bunch of our coaches and how to use those protocols to help our members achieve their desired results. And so that's where it's changed.
Right.
We've got, members who are going through the protocol, and some of that means more strength training, which is a phenomenon, right now, period, particularly with women, but not just men.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely part of the GLP-1 effect, is that people realize strength training is more important. Always has been important, but now people realize it's more important than ever before.
2 final questions, and they're both pretty fun, so don't worry. What are you most excited about in the coming year when it comes to Equinox? And what's your favorite class to take? Are you a class guy? No.
All right, so you just busted me.
You're like, I have a personal trainer.
I do. Yes, you caught me. So what I would say is I practice what I preach. My personal routine is I've had the same coach for 20 years.
Wow.
Who's been amazing. His name is Hisham. He's been with us for a very long time, obviously. And I strength train with him 3 times a week. And then separately, I love to sprint. I probably sprint more than I should, but I sprint probably 4 times a week and do cardio like 6 times a week.
Wow.
But I'm also very focused on the other aspects of MRC. So I eat really clean. I believe that pizza is a separate food group because that is my kryptonite. That's my weakness.
That actually makes me feel better because now you seem human.
Listen, I think I have done this long enough that I can say pizza and French fries are a separate food group with authority, right? I think,
Yeah. You're a health and wellness expert. That's accurate.
No science behind it, but that's just, a personal opinion. And then I'm a big believer in the sleep side. So, and I do all the biomarker stuff that I mentioned early on to inform this, but I make sure I get my sleep regardless of what's happening. Sleep is really, really important to me. So the upshot of all that is I will sometimes take a class at like Soul Cycle during the summer or what have you, but generally I'm working with my coach.
You're on a schedule. You're not trying to deviate.
Yeah. It's hard to say like what I'm really excited about for next year for Equinox, like one thing. As you mentioned, we have a lot going on. I'm super excited about just what we're doing and where we're going. So I mentioned during COVID, we came up with this kind of very simple strategic framework of rebound the business, grow the business, and transform the business. And most of my time is in the growth category and the transform. But I'm super excited about what we're doing in terms of programmatically what we're doing. Our new design is really amazing. It's elevated. It's more differentiated than it's ever before. We're doing some cool things with different designers. So one of our most important clubs is a club in West Hollywood, which is a who's who goes through that club. Mm-hmm. And we've partnered with Daniel Arsham, the artist and sculpturist, to renovate that club top to bottom. It'll be a brand new club.
And you've also got Snarkitecture involved in some of them. You guys are partnering
with
Daniel. That's Daniel.
Well, yeah. So we're doing some great things. I'm personally very passionate, involved in all things brand and design. And so our team's doing a phenomenal job. I couldn't be more proud of them and down to the last employee we have. So super excited what's to come. And I feel like we're just warming up. So COVID was pretty shitty.
Yeah.
But now we're really poised to win and win big, and not just domestically, globally. So it's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was great.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we are back with Mark, and it's time to wrap up the show with Keeping Tabs. This is where each of us shares a story, trend, or piece of pop culture we're following right now. And Mark, since you're our guest, what are you keeping tabs on?
I hate to be too predictable here, but I've been engulfed in politics and trying to limit my dosage. But I did find this conversation that's going on about Chuck Schumer kind of interesting right now, because I think it kind of folds in a lot of interesting things. I think there's a lot of conversation about whether he's still the right guy to be the minority leader in the Senate. And I personally think he's not the right kind of guy. It's interesting the way our politics is changing. During the Biden administrations where things were maybe a little less crazy, he was a fairly effective leader, but now things have really changed. And I just wonder what his fate is going to be. I suspect they may want somebody that's younger and more combative.
I just can't get over him refusing to answer who he voted for in the New York City mayoral election between, I wish he would just be like, I voted for Sliwa and go for there.
Yeah.
But just like, he clearly voted for Cuomo, and it's just like, just say that, guy. I mean, it's fine. Everyone assumes you did anyways. It's just Streisand affecting himself to not answer who he voted for.
That was the worst thing he possibly could have done. Because especially to younger people, it's, obviously that's what you just said is probably what happened. If I were going to go in front of a camera and anticipate that question, I would give an honest answer and then be prepared with a rational reason other than these people with big checkbooks, wanted me to vote for this guy. So I don't understand that. That seems like a self-inflicted wound, and that was a bad look for him for sure.
Yaz, what's your take on the abundance versus antitrust debate?
I'm sitting here like, guys, this is like the craziest keeping tabs. Just be like, here's a 30-second soundbite.
Oh, it's okay. We're going to take a hard left turn with this next one.
Josh, what are you keeping tabs on?
As you know, I follow the Ned Fulmer beat.
I meant to send this to you.
For those who don't know, and it seems like Mark probably doesn't know either, Ned Fulmer is a former Try Guy. So the Try Guys started at BuzzFeed Video. They tried things, launched their own channel. There were 4 of them. Now there's 2 of them left. One of them was Ned Fulmer, who then was bought out and left the Try Guys because he cheated on his wife with a food baby who was one of their employees.
And 3 of the Try Guys, the ones that were not with Ned, came on the show, were very mad when Josh asked them about Ned.
Only 2 of them. I started the interview with
only
it.
2. Sorry.
Well, to be fair, it's like they did this, Ned Fulmer cheated on his wife. His wife was on the channel as well. He was like a noted wife guy. That was like his whole brand. So this happened, a huge fallout from it. They lost all of their brand deals. They kind of had to rebuild from scratch. Whatever, their views tanked, all of this sort of thing. And so they're rebuilding from there, the remaining 2 Try Guys. The other Try Guy left on good terms. There wasn't any more scandal there. But anyways, Ned Fulmer has been back in the news and back in the media recently after 3 years because he launched a podcast and he's launching like a new YouTube channel where he's essentially going to be doing Try Guys content. It's basically like Ned Fulmer is trying things. But the first episode of his podcast was with his now ex-wife, Ariel.
It was horrible.
It was really horrible and listened to. And it got over 1 million views on YouTube. Who knows how many in the audio only version. Since then, he's getting no traffic on his videos. The podcast's still running a few thousand views per video after that big spike at the beginning because people tuned in. What kind of struck me about that initial conversation with Ariel Fulmer, his wife, was that it was like so nakedly opportunistic, but more so than anything, it was just kind of boring. So he came out last week with another quick bonus episode responding to the backlash of that episode. And basically went on, it was just like, hey, I've heard some of the things and I want to clarify my side of the story. And basically talked about like, I've been going to therapy and doing all these things, which is great. It's fine. Again, it was a 9-minute explanation basically of like, oh, I'm really trying to work on myself since I did this horrible thing. And look, guys, I'm taking accountability. Isn't that great? And it's like, okay, That's fine. That's all well and good. You are able to live your life, Ned Fulmer. You can start your own channel or try to make content. That's all fine. The thing that's so remarkable to me about this whole thing is the ego involved in it, because what happened with them, while it's devastating, and I personally don't endorse cheating, but the unfortunate reality...
Thank you for making that clear, Josh.
You're welcome. But the unfortunate reality is that it is just so ordinary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think like the ego of him being like, I'm going to rebuild my channel on the ethos of people really want to know how I'm doing and how I'm rebuilding. It's like, bro, I just don't care. I just don't care.
I thought you were going to talk about the fact that he made his debut as a wrestler.
Oh, this is
AEW.
another thing. Yeah, he made his debut as a wrestler as AEW on a show. It was a filming of part of his new series where he tries things. This just Try Guys content again. He tried being a professional wrestler. So that's a whole nother thing. No, I was going with the response to the backlash to the podcast that he has. And I just like, I want to have the sense of self where I think every ordinary, albeit dramatic challenge that I face in my life is good content, because it's just not. It's really not. So anyways, that's your update for the Ned Fulmer corner. I'm going to stay on this beat. I'm going to keep doing the on-the-ground beat reporting about Ned Fulmer that our audience demands. Anyways, speaking of content nobody wants.
Kind of like dispatches from the attention economy, sort of.
No, it truly is. I think Ned Fulmer should be the next Senate Majority Leader, but that's just me.
That's the sharp analysis I was looking for, and I'm glad you delivered it.
Yes, what are you keeping tabs on?
I've just been thinking about the fact that, like, pennies are done for.
I know.
And, like, I am...
Ever since that West Wing episode about it, I never thought they would go.
I don't remember that, but that is such a Josh reference.
There was a whole West Wing episode about how they should get rid of the penny, but they couldn't because of Illinois' politics or something like that. I don't know, some dumb Aaron Sorkin shit.
Well, they have, and I will say this is like not really in keeping with the rest of my personality, but I am weirdly superstitious, and if I see a penny, no matter how gross it is, I will pick it up.
I've seen you do this.
Yeah, I know, it's really upsetting.
It is upsetting.
And now I'm like, and I have like every tote bag I have has like a random penny at the bottom of it. But I'm kind of like, what am I gonna do?
Nickels?
And that's it for most innovative companies. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Our show is produced by Sam Gebauer, Hawa Atori, and Blake Odom, editing by Matt Toder, mix and sound design by Tad Wadhams and Nicholas Torres, and our executive producer is Josh Christensen. Remember again to subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.